and that is this: desire is not enough. I may have mentioned it already in the previous weeks, but we're really going to focus in on this, and we're going to use Nehemiah as an example. Okay? Let's go ahead and read the scripture in the book of Isaiah, chapter 29, verse 8. There's a scripture, and some of it reads like this: "It shall be as when a hungry man dreams, and behold, he eats, but he awakes, and his soul is empty." Have you ever wanted something so bad that you actually had a dream about it, only to wake up? That happens over and over again on a daily basis. So few people actually obtain what they are hungry for, because appetite does not guarantee substance. Appetite does not guarantee substance. Desire is not enough. You hear a lot of motivational talks, a lot of athletes talk about desire. That's a good starting point. Because if you don't have a desire for anything, you won't do it, right? If you don't have a desire to get off the couch, you don't get off the couch. If you're like my 18-year-old and you don't have a desire to get out of bed, it ain't happening, So if you don't have a desire, it ain't happening. So it starts with desire, but desire is not enough, so it takes action. So there's a little math equation that goes like this: desire plus no action equals dead dreams. Desire plus no action equals dead dreams. Again, I don't know if I've said this yet, but I think it's always good to remember as a tool to use in our life that many, many people leave this earth with their gifts still inside of them. They leave the earth with their dreams still inside of them. They leave the earth with their purpose still unfulfilled inside of them. And it's kind of like what we talked about before, how so few people actually know truly what they're called to do. So few people. Whether even out in the, we would understand, okay, out in the so-called world, the unbelievers that are trying to find their way and don't know their purpose in life, and a lot of us would say, well, it's because they don't know God, whatever, yada yada. But what language is that, yada yada? I hear people say it, but I never discovered where that actually came from. Yiddish. But for the church, you think about this, the Christian believer, to be a Christian means that you are Christ-like. To be Christ-like means you believe in Christ, you believe in God, you believe in His Son, you want to walk that path that He has created, that He has chosen. So we of all people should have a purpose, should know our purpose. We believe in the Creator that created us for a purpose. We believe in having the closest relationship we can possibly have with that Creator. So we should know and we should strive, if you will, to discover our purpose. Desire and no action equals dead dreams. So let's take a look again. Like I said, we're going to look at Nehemiah as an example. So Nehemiah, he's a cupbearer to the king. That's actually an important job at that time because, the king trusted him. And in case anybody wanted to assassinate the king by poisoning him, Nehemiah was the in-between. Okay? So a very important job. But Nehemiah had heard from some friends that Jerusalem was torn down, it was destroyed, it was in shambles, and the Jews were struggling people. And it broke his heart. It really impacted him. And so there was something bigger going on the inside of him. There was something beyond him that was taking place on the inside of him. It grieved him so much. And I think that sometimes we can maybe catch a glimpse of what we're created for when we hear about that thing that triggers our heart in such a way that it grieves us. that it ignites a passion in us. Maybe even ignites an anger in us. I think a lot of times you might be able to, in some way, at least discover some of why you're here. Because there are some people that, I would say as a Christian, we would all believe that all life is precious, and we would be more on the pro-life side of things, if you will, that all life is given by God, and we are created in the image of God, and we would all kind of agree to that, but yet there are some people that burn with a passion in that particular issue. We would all believe that in business that we should have so-called business ethics, if you will, or, you know, in today's world it's kind of hard to use that word because it's kind of defined differently today. But good quality ethics in business, in dealing with our fellow man. And I think we would all agree that we want integrity and honesty in our business dealings. But yet, I would say that there are some people that get fired up about it.
Right.
Some people that burn to do business in a quality way for other people.
Right.
So again, those little things that spark us, that ignite us, that there's something bigger taking place. I think we can kind of begin to at least get a glimpse of our calling, of our purpose, or at least an area that we should even maybe lean toward as we're walking our path, right? So with Nehemiah, something bigger was taking place on the inside of him. So we look at this, and Nehemiah knew that simply wishing or hoping or feeling sad about things would not change anything. He refused to let his dream die. So he took action. He began a series of action steps to accomplish this dream. So Nehemiah begins to hear about the condition of Jerusalem and the Jews. It begins to tear him up inside. He begins to feel this passion ignite on the inside of him. He cries about it. He weeps about it. He's grieved about it. Something has to be done. He knew that just sitting there grieving over the condition of Jerusalem would not help Jerusalem. He knew that only action could take place to help. So he had a dream that Jerusalem would be restored, the Jews would be restored, and he knew he had to take action. So what do I do now? See, so many times in life, I think we get to that point. We get to that point. What do I do now? I've got to do something. I've got to take action. I want to take action. But what? Sometimes we just kind of jump and we like, oh, I jumped too soon. Sometimes we wait till the exact right moment and it never comes, and then we lose heart. I mean, it depends on your personality. It depends on the way you approach life. You know, sometimes we're like Peter, we just whip out the sword and cut the guy's ear off. You know? And sometimes we're like some of the other disciples that kind of go and hide because they don't want to be seen. They get scared and they run. I mean, we're all created differently. We all approach life differently. So we all approach these things differently. Used to, I always wanted to jump. I'm the one that jumps then says, oh my God, help me. That's how I always used to be, right? So after years and years of being married, I'm getting a little better at that, just a little. So whenever I told you guys, like I'm excited about it, so I talk about it a lot, but when I went to enroll at Liberty University for classes, I told Beth I was thinking about it, and then I told Beth I did it.
What was the best response?
And she was just like,
No, the first time.
well, she wants me to wait, right? So then there was something else that I was thinking about doing, and she gave me a response, and I didn't like the way she responded. I was okay with the answer, it was just the way she did it, you know? And so then I was talking to her about it, and I said, you know, something about, you don't let me do what I want to do, and She's like, oh yeah, well, who enrolled in college without waiting on my permission, so.
I just said you should finish some things first.
And I am.
Okay.
I almost said I did. I'm almost there. So anyway, so we want to take action. Again, I'm a guy, I like to take action. And just, let's get in there, let's dive in, let's do things. But that's not always the right approach. So, but what Nehemiah did, again, we got to learn from Nehemiah tonight. First thing he did is pray.
That's it.
That's actually what he did. Before he took it to anybody, he took it to prayer. He took it to God. First thing he did is pray. Nehemiah knew that the task at hand was far beyond his current capability and resources. That's what happens a lot of times when we get a glimpse of the possibilities. One of the first things we acknowledge or see is that it's beyond us. That's kind of like Gideon. When Gideon, if you know about that account in Scripture, if you don't, you can go back and read it. But Gideon the angel came to him and said, you're a mighty man of valor. You're going to be a general and lead an army. And he's like, whoa, dude. That's not me. That's beyond me. He said, my family is the poorest around. And I'm the poorest in my family. So immediately he began to look at his circumstances. But then when he began to grab hold of the vision, when he began to grab hold of the possibility, it was at that point he realized this is possible, but it's beyond my capability. It's beyond my resources. It's beyond my current condition. Look, if where God wants to take you isn't beyond where you're at, you got problems anyway. Right? God's always saying, come out and walk on the water. One thing that's so cool about when Peter began to walk on the water is this. Peter began to walk in an area that he shouldn't logically be allowed to walk in. There, you yourself may find yourself in time to come as you walk the path that God has you on. You may find yourself going, holy cow, what have I done to get me in this position? What credentials do I have to land me here? And the answer will be, you don't. It's because God wanted you there.
That's it.
Just simple obedience to God. And that's where Peter found himself. And that's where you'll find yourself. When you follow the path of God, you'll find yourself walking in areas that you shouldn't logically be able to walk in. You'll find yourself in positions, in places, in front of people, different circumstances that you would have never thought of, you would have never dreamed of. It's like where God says He's able to do exceedingly, abundantly above all that we ask for. So God can do amazing things. So Nehemiah knew he had to go to prayer. So we put ourselves down the path. Here's the problem that we do sometimes. Sometimes we put ourselves down the path and ask God to bless what we've done, instead of walk the path that He has blessed. Again, it goes back to just jumping, just going, just doing, and then going, okay, God, bless this, please. You know? Instead of doing like Nehemiah, taking time to pray, to contemplate, to seek the Lord, and then saying, I want to walk the path that you have blessed. Not have to beg you to bless the path that I have walked. Because when we walk His path, it is so much more fluid. It's not that everything's so easy, but it's definitely a lot easier. It's not that you don't have trouble, it's just that you have someone to help you through your trouble, instead of saying, well, I told you shouldn't have went that way anyway, get back over here. You don't have to face His chastisement, you can embrace His peace. Okay? So we bring it before God to obtain clarity, and then we ask for those impossible and improbable doors to open. So we acknowledge that we have this thing ahead of us that is beyond our capability, it is beyond our resources. So we go to the Lord in prayer and we say, God, I feel this, I see this, I believe this is where you have me, I believe this is what you're wanting for my life. So God, you know and I know to get there, I need you. Because there's some impossibilities in front of me. There's some improbabilities in front of me. There are some obstacles ahead that would keep me from arriving there unless you take me through it. Unless you provide the resources. Unless you open the doors. And then at that point, here's another big key that I've discovered in my personal life. At that point, waiting on the Lord. Because if He ain't opened the door, that means you don't have to go in.
Right. Yeah. That's it.
And it's okay.
Yes. Yeah, that's good.
Because there's been doors that I've kicked open,
Yeah, that's right.
only to back out of the room and go, okay, wait a second, I shouldn't have done that. Shouldn't have went in that room.
Yeah.
Right? So if the door's not open, it's okay. God doesn't, He doesn't have to have you kicking doors open for Him. He is well able to open the door on His own.
Yes.
To allow you to walk through it. So we have to possess this, let me see. Okay. Let's go ahead. Let's walk through this. I was going to jump. I was trying to jump ahead, but I want to walk through this. See, I told you, I want to jump. I want to walk through this. Let's calm down, let's settle down, and let's take a walk. All right. So another step that Nehemiah had to come to, and that we have to come to in our lives, is possess a clear vision and communicate that vision well. Okay? Possess a clear vision and communicate it well. You have to recognize, here's where I am. It acknowledges, this is where I'm at. But this is where I'm going. Here's where I'm at. Here's where I'm going. Possess a clear vision and communicate it well. So, I know, I acknowledge where a lot of people talk about faith, and this is ahead, so I may repeat myself in a second. But sometimes we want to not acknowledge the reality of where we're at because we believe that in doing so means we don't have faith. But the reality is, if we don't acknowledge where we're at, then why would you even need faith? Because, you see what I'm saying? So we acknowledge where we're at. We say, God, this is where I'm at. Faith is what gets me from here to there. Faith is a bridge. But you can stand and look at a bridge all day long and stay on this side. Faith is a bridge, but you still must walk across it. That's putting action to your faith. All right? So, here's where I'm at, but here's where I'm going. So we have to do positioning and groundwork. So this is our part. Again, it's like talking about the garden. Chanting over your garden that there are no weeds isn't going to work. You have to get in the garden. You have to pull the weeds. You have to work the ground. So you must be in the right position to act. Nehemiah, okay, he could not go to Jerusalem and stay in the castle at the same time. He had to get in position. Each step towards your dream, towards your goal, towards your purpose, brings on a greater demand on your life. So in Nehemiah's case, Nehemiah could not go and fulfill and build the city of Jerusalem and stay the cupbearer inside the palace simultaneously. Seems obvious, right? But so many times we're afraid to get out of the boat to walk toward our destiny because we're comfortable with our surroundings. The closer you get to your purpose, the more demand comes upon your life. Because what happens when you start out, you have all kinds of choices. But the more you pinpoint who you are and whose you are and for why you were called, your choices become more and more minimal. You can't just go and do everything you want to do. Because every time you choose to do something, you're giving up something else. That's how our economy works. I want to purchase this, so I give away this. We do it with money, we do it with our time, we do it with our energy. If I'm expelling all my energy over here, then I can't expel my energy over here. So what should I do? Which one's going to get me closer to my purpose? Where am I going to spend my time? Okay, I think we get the point, right? So you can't stay here and go there. Sometimes it requires dramatic movement. It requires you getting out of your comfort zone sometimes. It requires challenging yourself sometimes. It's going to be different for everybody. For some, it may be a giant leap. For some, it may be a small step. But to them, it was a giant leap. We're all different, right? So let me look in here again. So each step towards your dream becomes a greater demand. You have to willingly place yourself spiritually, mentally, and geographically in the arenas God has chosen for you. Even geographically in the arena God has chosen for you. Nehemiah went to Jerusalem in secret to inspect the city. He first kept his intentions to himself because he wanted to protect the dream. Here's another important step. Remember, we're just kind of walking through this little steps at a time. Prematurely articulating your dream publicly before you know what you are dealing with could stall, stifle, or even abort your dream.
Yes. Get that.
Okay? Exposing it prematurely, trying to articulate your dream, prematurely trying to push your dream, prematurely trying to push your purpose out there in front of the world to see before it's time, before you really know what's expected, can abolish the whole thing.
Absolutely.
Because if you're so pumped and you're so excited, you're like, I know I can do this. I know God told me to do this. God may have told you to do it. God told me to do this, and I'm going to jump, and I'm going to do it. And you get it, and you announce everything, and you make this big deal out of it, this big show, if you will. And then a week later, you find out, wow, this is pretty hard. Wow, this isn't just going to happen on its own, is it? And then somebody comes and says, hey, how's that going? Well, you know. And that can do all kinds of different things. I mean, it can bring the dream down in everybody else's eyes. It can make you feel bad about yourself. It can make you feel like, well, I'm never going to be able to do it, or I'm not going to, or and all of a sudden a bunch of negative consequences begin to pile. Now, it's kind of like Joseph. I mean, I don't know, Joseph's story, I mean, his whole life worked out just fine. But he went through some trouble because he began to share a dream that the other people weren't so happy about. Now, should he have shared it when he did? I don't know. That's between him and God. But him sharing his dream got him in some trouble. His brothers hated him and they wanted to kill him. They were going to kill him. But one of the brothers stopped it. All because, possibly, I think, he prematurely exposed his dream. Because not everybody's going to be happy about your dream. Just because you're excited about it doesn't mean everybody else is excited about it.
That's right.
That's why you got to know who you are. You got to know you. You got to be okay with you. All right? So, again, we have to dig in. We have to start finding out what needs to be done to get to where we want to go and begin building. The Bible tells us that if you're going to build something, you have to count the costs. It's a step-by-step process. Again, when I was a little younger, I felt like everything had to be done today. Because I felt like if I wait till tomorrow, it's going to be too late. But one thing I've discovered later in my life now is it just doesn't happen that way. That I can chill out a little bit and let God be God. Because God can do with me in 1 year beyond what I could do with myself in 99. So if I chill out and I walk with God, I keep His pace. I let Him lead me and guide me. And I walk these steps, all these steps we've talked about tonight. And sometimes you have to come back and walk these steps again. Sometimes you enter a new chapter and you start from the beginning. And sometimes you take 10 steps ahead and fall 3 steps back. But at least you're still 7 steps ahead. That's life. I think that's one of the biggest things we forget as Christians in trying to pursue this calling that God has for us, is we forget that life is life. It's just life. Just one step at a time, one day at a time. Lord, help me this day. Give me this day my daily bread. Now, to move into a next step of tonight, we're going to watch a video, and this kind of rides on the, Bishop Jakes rides on the back of what I've just said. But when I talked about you got to know who you are, that's what we're going to hear tonight from T.D. Jakes. You got to know who you are. You got to be okay with who you are. Because when you know who you are, nothing else really matters.
Right.
You can be okay with you.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead and play. Uh-oh. You know where it's at on the soundboard? Oh, okay. And again, this is just a little teaser. If you want to go watch the whole thing, he has a lot of good stuff on there that's been updated.
We just had the Super Bowl, and the advertisement ads, millions and millions of dollars were placed into those ads, and purchasing them were extremely expensive because companies wanted you to perceive them a certain way. It's important. Brand management in business, brand management, so that people have the proper analysis of your brand. Brand protection is important, because if you lose your name, you've lost your power. And I would venture to say that if people have a great perception of you, you can perform in a mediocre way and they'll still give you credit on the level that they see you at, because perception can cause you to rise in the eyes of the people that somebody else could have got up and said that, they'd have got in trouble. But because you said it and they perceive you to be a certain way, I'll go even deeper than that. You can buy a cheap tie, but if they perceive that you're a wealthy person, they will perceive that it has value and never know. Oh, y'all not going to talk to me this morning. You just going to sit there. Your nose is cold this morning. I'm going to talk about it until you get it. Jesus lived in a world of perceptions. And he could not isolate himself just to the people he liked. Now this is very, very important. Some of you have the luxury of only engaging people that fit a certain profile. Anybody that you don't like, you don't deal with. And that's fine. You have an air-conditioned life. You control the climate of your life. You say who gets in, you say who gets out, and that's fine as long as you're happy to have a small life. A small life that may be so small that you may have to cut out some of your own children to control the atmosphere the way you need it to be. Because if you're going to control the atmosphere and you are not able to deal with people with different world views and everything has to be controlled in order for you to feel comfortable, little by little you're going to be pushed further and further out of the crowd, into the house, out of the house, into a closet, into a corner, living in a drawer, in a wardrobe, because you cannot stand to deal with people of various ideas and opinions. Jesus faced them head on, looked them straight in the eye, perceived who they were, understood how they were, but he had to be able to deal with a lot of people. This is important because it may be the key to your crisis. That your need to control other people's perception drives you into isolation. Because what that means is you can only be around people you can control. Jesus went to everybody. He went to the religious people. He went to the tax collectors. He went to the prostitutes. He went to the winos. He went to the lame and the blind and the sick and the halt and the lepers and hung out with people that other people wouldn't touch. Jesus went to everybody. He let people touch him that even his own disciples didn't appreciate. His disciples thought they had more discernment. They said if he knew who that woman was, he wouldn't let her touch him. And there she was crying at his feet. And Jesus said, wherever the gospel is preached, remember this woman. He wasn't so worried about their perception that he wouldn't get involved with somebody that looked questionable. Maybe it was because he knew who he was. When you know who you are, when you know what you're about, when you know flat-footed, this is who I am, you can walk amongst fire and not get burned. You can walk in a room full of and not be hexed because you know who you are. I can work with atheists and agnostics and Jews and Gentiles and Muslims and everybody else because I know who I am. Do you know who you are? Or are you constantly contorting yourself into an image that is acceptable for this group, but then it alienates you from that group, and then you switch over so you can work with this group, but now that group is talking about you, and then you turn over to this group. My God, you must be worn out. Because if you keep changing into all of these caricatures and expressions of yourself so that people will like you, after a while, you lose sight of who you really are. You played so many roles and so many games that you really cannot find yourself. So things like worship in service or intimacy in relationship begins to escape you, because in order to worship well or be intimate in a relationship, you have to know the gift you bring to the table. And you don't know who you are. In our text today, Jesus is dealing with the Pharisees and the Sadducees. And they have an attitude about him in the upper part above the text that was just written. They have a real attitude. They come to Jesus and say, give us a sign. Give us a sign that you are who you say you are. Like the onus is on him. People have subtle ways.
You hear the point. You got purpose. And when you begin to grasp that and begin to embrace that and be comfortable with that, you can have peace. And other people's opinions doesn't faze you as much. And you can be confident in your area. You can actually walk into the room knowing what you know, and be confident when you speak. Be confident when you share. Because when you deal with your subject, don't tell me any different. I know what I'm talking about. Right? If I'm a carpenter, I don't want someone else telling me how I'm supposed to build something when I've built it 20 times. Right? My wife, she doesn't want me telling her how she's supposed to take care of her health because she's a nurse. Right? So,
Is that doghouse ready tonight?
So let me, since we have a couple minutes, there is some things I highlighted, and for time's sake, I'm just going to read through it because I do want to cover this part too. I had it as extra, and I'm just going to kind of throw it in here because this will be it as far as, again, going through the book. We just went through the first few chapters of it. And so if you want to read the rest, this can be yours for the low price. No. So paying the price.
$39.95.
So, yeah. Many do not want to hear the reality of hardships and obstacles. They somehow believe that if you don't acknowledge what is happening, that is having faith. When in reality, if there were no obstacle or hardship, we wouldn't need faith. Faith is a bridge that connects where we are to where we are going. However, we are still required to walk across. The key is to take one step at a time. Notice that Nehemiah didn't accomplish his task too quickly, nor did he give up when he faced obstacles. He simply took one step, did what needed to be done, and didn't take the next step until the previous step was secure. It is only in God's power and timing that we progress. Our part of the journey is just simply obedience. Sometimes God will require us to pause, to stop. Again, going back to the door, if he ain't opening, just chill. Okay? The time of pausing is not our demise. It is for our benefit. During these times, there is work happening. It's just not on your part. There was a time I was trying to make a decision in my life, and I was praying about it, and I was really seeking God on what to do. And it was a decision I had to make. And then all of a sudden it was like God put it on pause. And I felt him tell me inside that my part was done. He was working on the other end. And based upon their decision on the other end, then he would give me my answer. So I didn't have to do anything else. It wasn't that the work stopped. It was just the work wasn't mine to do. And then when that took place, I felt it in my spirit, it was done. And I had my decision. And I was at peace with that. It was really, really interesting to me. But he knows we are only human, and our mortal bodies and mental capacity can only handle so much. That is when he gives us seasons of rest. Take these times of rest, not because you want to, but because he wants you to. He knows us better than we know ourselves, and He knows what we will encounter on the path in front of us. Everything He does is in preparation for our future. Sometimes He's just simply preparing you for what's ahead of you. Everything He does is preparation for our future. The desire to quit, we have to stay motivated. Because, again, this is an endurance race. That's why He says those that endure until the end. He says the race is not to the swift, right? But to those that endure. Those are the ones that's going to make it. It's an endurance race. The desire to quit is birthed out of a feeling of not being in control. Once we feel the situation or circumstances beyond our ability to maneuver it, we are more apt to throw in the towel. Because we can't do anything about it. It's not going the way we want it to. There's nothing we can do. I'm stuck. I quit. So many times we go through that. It's not that quitting is not the right thing to do, but quitting at the wrong time is always the wrong thing to do. Quitting at the right time, if it's something that you're required to quit, is very important. Quitting when you shouldn't quit is a horrible idea. Because usually what happens is God has to take you around a long journey just to get back to that point right before you quit. And then says, try again. So if we can avoid that, that would be great. That would be wonderful. God knows exactly who He is and what He can do. He doesn't need to prove anything. It is you that must know who you are and what you can do in Him. So, we have to embody this authority and humility simultaneously. He says this in His Word. He says, through me, you can do all things. Right? I can do all things through Christ, which strengthens me. So it's the boldness and authority that says, I can do it. But it's the humility that realizes it's only through Christ.
Yes.
Because it is He that gives me the strength
Yes.
to do it.
Yes.
So we have to embody humility and authority. It takes both. One without the other will always lead to destruction or depression. If you do one without the other, it'll lead to your destruction or it can lead to great depression. And I wrote that part because I've been there. I've had times in my life that have just plummeted me into a deep depression. All because of trying to hurry through, rush through, things didn't go the way I thought they should. You know, it was a mess and just spinning my wheels. And it got to me. So we have to keep our priorities straight at all times also in this whole quest. Again, it goes back to what I said earlier. If you do this, you can't do that. What's your priority? What is that thing that you know you got to do and you got to put everything else aside to do it? Some of those things, some of those priorities are going to be a part of I'm not just talking about the end goal, but I'm talking about your journey along the way. If I know I'm headed that direction, then I have to prioritize my steps in that direction. So that may mean I need to cut this off because this always takes me over here. This always takes my time over here when I should be spending my time over here. Some things, and again, I know I've said this before, but I want to hit on it right here at this moment. Some things that God will have you do, or God has called you to, will require active participation in things that you're not doing right now. And that may be some type of training, some type of book work, some type of coursework, possibly college, maybe tech training, whatever it is. It may require you to say, I can't binge on Netflix this year because I have to focus on my degree. Right? Just whatever it is. Whatever it is. Whatever your thing is. How much are you going to put into it? How much are you going to devote yourself to it? When you know what it is. So again, we said in the very beginning when we started this course, at the very least, we wanted you at the starting line with intentions of running a direction. So I want to leave you tonight asking you that question. Do you feel that yet? You don't have to answer it right now. I'm just wanting you to think about it. Do you feel that yet? Is there a course? Is there at least an inkling, an unction of a direction that says, okay, I'm at the starting line. I'm going to run this way. Knowing that with everything in you, you know that you're not rebelling against God. You're not just doing this because you want to. You're not doing it on your own. You know that everything you know, your love for God, your relationship with God, with everything you know, because we're all at different levels. This next step I take with all my heart, right, wrong, whatever, I'm doing it because I believe God's in it. Can you say that? That's really what we're looking for. Can you say that your next step, your next decision, your next unction, with everything that you know, you're doing the best you can before God, that next step, you believe with everything in you, is because God wants you to walk that next step, that direction. Again, because the reason I try to put it like that is because you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to know the perfect answer. You don't have to see the whole path. You can't see the whole path. I know there's been times I've prayed before. I said, God, with everything in me, this is the direction I want to go. This is what I'm going to do. This is what I feel like doing. And with all purity of heart, I was doing it for the right reasons. God, if you don't want me to, stop me. Do something. Let me, because I didn't feel there's times you don't feel a real strong but you don't feel a stop. And so you just kind of inch out there a little bit. There's no one formula that works every single time. It's kind of like David, and I was going to end, but this just came to me too. David, when he was going into battle, there were times when he prayed, God, should I go and fight? And God said, go fight. I'm with you. And he just went and fought, and he won. Then there was another battle. If he would have done it the same way, he said, well, God, last time God told me to go fight, so I'm just going to go fight. He might have lost. But he stopped, and he asked, God, what do I do this time? And God didn't say go fight. God gave him completely different instructions and said, I'll fight for you on this one. So, again, purity of heart, that's the big thing. And sometimes when you have a pure heart, when you make a mistake, let's face it, God knows it. And God's okay. God still loves you. God said, hey, nice try, but, just come back here, let's try it again. It's so funny. I was coaching this little boy. I don't think I told you this, but he was just shooting these shots like second grader. He just kept shooting and shooting, running down the court shooting, missing everything. So I called timeout and I get them together. I'm like, okay, guys, let's do what we did in practice, okay? Let's work the ball. And I didn't really point him out, And I just said, as a team, let's really try to get this together. So they get back out there, same thing. He just run up and shoot it, run up and shoot it, run up and shoot it. So finally, I pull him out and I put another kid in his place. And I set him down beside me. I said, hey, man, we're not really doing what we did in practice. You know, I said, what's going on? And to get to the point, I said, what are you doing? I said, you just keep running and shooting and running and shooting. And, you know, what's going on? Why are you doing that? And he's sitting there and he goes, I just want my shots. I was like, inside I'm busting out laughing like,
Sounds like some.
I just want my shots, you know? And sometimes that's how we are, right? You know, when our relationship with God, God's trying to slow us down, say, man, what are you doing, man? Just chill out, just stop. God, I just want my shots, you know? True. Just I want to do my thing, you know? And God's just saying, chill, and your opportunity will come.
Yes.
Calm down.
Rest.
And then the next week we come back, the kid played awesome. Had a great game. We worked it, you know.